I've come across this Amiga A600. It's not in the best condition, but is apparently functional. The Kickstart ROM is missing a few legs though. How did that happen? I have an EPROM programmer and some suitable EPROMs. But my TL866 MiniPro programmer clone doesn't support the 27C400 EPROM. So we're going to build this adapter and make a new Kickstart. Right now. Mark fixes stuff. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. You can get an instant quote on a variety of services, or browse a library of talented makers' designs, add them to your cart, and have them delivered directly to your door. This board makes a handy little adapter for programming chips not directly supported by the MiniPro programmer. It was designed by Gaggy from the German forum circuitboard.de. Link below. The adapter adds support for 27C400, C800, C160 and C322 EPROM devices. Because of a lack of pins on the programmer, the C800, C160 and C322 are programmed in multiple writes. 2, 4 and 8 passes respectively. Between passes, the small bank of dip switches need to be set as per this diagram. We only need one pass for our 27C400 though. Let's build the board. As usual, the first thing we need to do is clean the PCB. I'm using 99% pure IPA or isopropanol alcohol. It's a great degreaser, and cleaning is important because even new boards can have handling contamination. With the board clean, it's time to place our parts into the holes. Firing up the soldering iron, we select our usual 330 degrees centigrade. The build order of this project is not very strict, but we must place the header pin rows before the ZIF socket. So we'll start with those. We'll want our ZIF socket to sit flush, so we'll trim the pins flush to the board before soldering. Using my usual trick of Smurf poop to hold the rows in place, we trim the pins located under the socket. Wear eye protection. Angled side cutters are made to exert the force of the cut into the part you're trimming off. Even at 240 frames per second, you can't capture my bit shooting off. This is definitely a good time to use flux. It will give us a much needed advantage when installing the trimmed pins. Then we solder one pin on each end to hold our part firm whilst we work the full length of the unit. Soldering these shorter pins is a bit trickier than usual, but we manage okay. The other row is the same. With the pins installed, we can turn to the other components. Dummy Dave has brought me 5 10 kilo ohm resistors. These are placed in positions R1 to 5 respectively. Resistors are not polarised, but I like to make sure that all the bands are orientated in the right direction for aesthetic reasons. I like to pre-bend the leads to get them relatively even looking. Soldering the resistors into the board is nice and easy on this project. Always remember to trim your bits for a nice, clean, pristine look. Next is a BC327 amplification transistor. It's a PNP bipolar junction transistor in a TO92 package, and the polarity is important because it provides the programming and supply voltages to the EPROM. In other words, get it the right way around by matching the shape of the component to the marking on the board. Pop the leads through the board and spread them. Then solder into place. And trim the 3 leads. This is a bank of mini dip switches. Because the TL866 is a 40-pin programmer, it doesn't have enough address lines to program the 27C800, 160 or 322 in one go. Moving the dip switches to the correct positions means we can switch the programmer's address lines to different parts of the chip and program in multiple passes. We don't need to do that today though, because our 27C400 can be programmed in one pass and just needs the basic pinout changed by the adapter. With the dip switches installed matching the silk screen, we can install the 27C322 specific switch. The 27C322 has a slightly different pinout to other devices, so this DP-DT or double pole double throw switch reroutes those pins. For any other devices other than a 27C322, we need to leave it on Other. A double pole double throw switch really is like having 2 single pole switches combined. In fact, the project schematic shows how the 2 poles switch to separate parts of the circuit to match the 27C322. The switch can be installed any way around. And with the aid of some more Strumpfscheisse, it's soon soldered into place. Although this is a no clean flux, I want the board to be pristine before I install the ZIF socket over the top of it. So a second tender wiping with IPA is in order. It looks so much better. Now it's time to install the ZIF socket. This is a slightly more expensive cheapo version from AliExpress. I just wanted a black one to match the PCB. Looking at the silk screen, we can see that the handle location is marked. Placing the part in, our earlier trimming has paid dividends, and whilst not exactly flush, it sits nicely. Using a little more Smurf plop, we secure the socket for soldering, and get down to business. hope you're enjoying this video. Since global events destroyed my livelihood, I've been chasing my dream to become a full-time content creator on YouTube. If you would like to, and if you're able to support the channel, please visit patreon.com/MarkFixedHisStuff to become a patron. You'll help me to create more content, and also gain access to ad and sponsor spot free versions of my work. Patrons genuinely drive this channel, and any help, big or small, is really valued and appreciated. With the socket in place, the adapter is complete. Now it's time to try it out. I want to read the original Kickstart into the buffer of the EPROM programmer. To do this, I'm going to solder 3 of the offcuts from the resistors to the stumps of the legs. Plus, this leg that also fell off as well during the process. I then checked the rest of the legs. Placing the adapter into the programmer, we mount the chip into the adapter socket. The EPROM needs to be placed in the lowest possible position. Although this chip is also unsupported in the MiniPro software, our adapter will enable us to read it. In the software, we select a 27C4096 device. And disable chip ID. Otherwise, the read or writes will fail. Once the read is complete, we can see some readable information in the buffer. A really good sign. Now we need to write it back to the EPROM. The EPROM we're using is a genuine AM27C400, this time with a maximum access time of 120 nanoseconds. This isn't the one from earlier though. I dropped that and it bounced under the bench, landing in an alternate dimension never to be found again. The MiniPro doesn't have a listing for this chip naturally, so I checked the datasheet with an internet search. Programming this device requires 12.75 volts per pixel, plus or minus a quarter of a volt. The default 13.5 volts feels a bit too high for me in this case, so we'll reduce it. On the datasheet we can see that programming calls for a 100 microsecond pulse delay, so we're good to go. Placing the EPROM into the adapter, again we put it in the lowest position and clamp that lever down. The buffer is still loaded with the content we read from our leg deficient chip. We'll save this, although we could just write straight away. Heartwarmingly, the file is 512K as expected, the same capacity as the EPROM. Now, if the buffer was empty or we had downloaded the EPROM file, we'd simply load the file here. But we're ready to go, so we just press the P button to program our device. Programming takes 78 seconds, and verification takes 7 seconds. And we're ready to try out our new Amiga Kickstart ROM. This clear window will need to be covered with an opaque label to prevent UV slowly erasing the information on the chip over time. This would take a considerable amount of time inside a machine, but we'll do that after testing. Inserting our EPROM into the A600, the kickstart is only half of the battle. We'll need something to boot if it works. With that in mind, we hook up a floppy drive. Insert a floppy into its slot. And power on, with a filthy PSU. Ugh. The screen flashes white. The drive whirs. Success! This will obviously take some more testing, but I've done this process a few times before and I'm pretty confident that the EPROM will be fine. Even if this A600 clearly needs some serious sprucing up. Huge thanks to my amazing patrons. They drive the channel and help me produce this content. Here they are. Thanks for watching this video. Like, share and subscribe for more. Here are some other videos that you might enjoy. Bye!